Any agenda reviews? I have none.
Only thing I wanted to do is make sure that we did some introductions because we have some new people.
Yep. Why don't we do that right now? Pete is joining us. He was elected for the 3rd seat for Franklin. This is his first meeting. If you want, we'll go around and introduce ourselves, and then that way you know who we are. I'm Chris Shepard. I'm representing Highgate.
Jen Shai, representing Highgate.
Julie Reginald.
Kosha Patel, Director of Curriculum.
Megan Conley, Swanton.
Terry O'Shea, Swanton.
Laura McAllister, Business Manager.
I'm Tamara. I'm filling in for Purette for minutes.
I'm Don Collins. I represent Swanton, and I'm going to hand it over to Paul.
Okay. Paul Gregoire, Facility Director at MVU.
Rachel Lombard, DW Construction.
Tim Heinlein, DW Construction.
Wendy Cunningham, Director of Early Childhood Programs for MVSD.
Dave Roddy, Highgate citizen.
Jay Hartman, High School Principal at Missisquoi.
And I just wanted everyone to meet Wendy, who's our just started July 1st as our new early childhood director, and she's absolutely fabulous already. So we're so glad she's joined us here.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay, on to correspondence, visitors, and public comments.
Just a heckler from the crowd.
Okay. Consent agenda approval of minutes from June 11th and June 18th. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move the minutes.
Second,
I'll second.
discussion.
I had something, and I'm trying to find it again. It was super minor.
Would you email it to Purette so she can make that change directly?
Yeah, yep. If I can find it again.
This is my apology. I don't have them in my folder electronically, so I can't make that change live here.
Do we need to do that now? No. Okay, do that now.
No, I don't have it.
Hi, Terry.
It was like a would instead of a would not. I'm sorry. All right, I'll skip it because I can't look at it.
But you'll promise to email her and
Yes.
and so she makes that change.
You have me recorded.
Okay.
Any other adjustments for the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving June 11th, June 18th minutes with one minor adjustment to be made later, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 6-0-1.
Mr. Chairman, I want to go back to the previous item. I noticed Mr. Roddy's here tonight. For those who do not realize this, Mr. Roddy has received 2 plaques for retiring from the school board, and I have a feeling that we're probably going to give him a 3rd one here within the next couple of years. Welcome, Mr. Roddy.
Redoing his living room and look at.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. He's received.
3rd class.
Oh.
It's been here for
All right.
time.
Okay, on to presentations from update from Dew on MVU construction project.
Paul, do you want to introduce everybody?
So, I'd like to maybe give you a little history on how we got to the project and things like this. I don't know if the board has heard anything about how we got to the bond roll, but I've been with the school since 2004, and shortly thereafter, the Hartford Steam Boiler Company is doing our boiler inspections and air compressor inspections and stuff. And they were always leaving comments about the boiler room being about 20 feet below ground level with major sump pumps is the only way to evacuate the water out of the basement. And we pump actually 13,000 gallons of water a day out of the basement down there. So their concern is losing a boiler. They did lose the main control panels sometime, I believe in the late 80s or early 90s. So this was a concern. So we looked at several options. They wanted us to go direct depth of daylight instead of having mechanical pumps or means to pump the water. So we looked at several options, open excavations, directional boring. Everything came back in over $600,000. So then we started looking at other options. If we're going to be putting $600,000 in the ground for a 400-foot pipe, maybe we should be looking at other avenues. And this is what brought us to today's project. New boiler room, hardening the front end of the school, interconnecting walkway to J-Pod. And then I'll turn this over to Tim Heinlein.
Sure. So, thank you for having us. Yeah, no, that's okay. We don't mind that. So, I'm a project manager with DEW Construction, and Rachel knows all the details. She's the project engineer. So, I can just kind of give you a broad stroke, and Rachel has any of the details I'm sure she can answer. Rachel's really involved heavily. So, what's exciting for us is that we're both Franklin County residents, so we take pride in delivering this project on time and on budget because we know a lot of people around here. So, Rachel's family's from the Enosburg, Fairfield area, and I'm from the St. Albans area, so we're all close. But we started the job, in April, Rachel? Late April, I guess. We had a little jump start, which was good, and we put the wood chip plant expansion and walkways in, and MVU staff was great. Let us work around them. So that was really beneficial in getting this project done for the kids to come back on time. So right now we're on schedule. We're hitting dates that we've had set since April. There's been some challenges, there always is. Right now we're at the end of June is our last schedule update. At the end of each month we give the school a month-end update. So our last month-end update was June 2019, and we were 50% complete or so.
Yep.
And we were on target for an 8/27 completion. Okay, so right now we're still targeting that August 27th completion, and we know I think we've got some first-year teachers coming in on the 15th.
Yep.
We're gonna have to work around them. I don't know. I think they're here a day on the 15th.
Yep.
Check. And then in service, I think it's August 26th. Is it?
20th.
August 20th. August 20th through what?
The 23rd.
The 23rd. So they're going to have to work around our punch list activities during that in-service period of time. And then the kids come back on the 27th, 7th to 8th graders, and full school at 8/28, and we'll be ready for them. So right now the big, if you go out there and take a look, the area that is really critical for us to finish on time is the vestibule, the new entryway that we've done. So there's a lot of work going on there. Like Paul said, we used the word hardening, but it's security enhancements is what it is. So the designers incorporated some ballistic rated walls and glazing systems. So when you walk into that vestibule, there is a secure area behind that wall. So that's good, and it's too bad that it's come to that point with these schools now, but you're seeing more and more of it. And then there's a new curtain wall, aluminum storefront system just outboard of that gets you into the school, and we're also putting in some what they call bollards, or steel pipe bollards. And another thing, it's just another safety feature, but that's to deter some vehicle from driving through the entryway. And then there's concrete work out there. So we're gonna dress that front end right up. And a lot of work has to happen in 3.5 weeks or so. So we've got the materials are here. That we're always worried about material procurement on these short schedules. And couple of the things that we're concerned about was the ballistic components, and we have those, which is really good because I did a project where we had a problem with ballistic components. Now our last piece of the puzzle, I think, is the curtain wall in the front. We're right down the wire on getting it on time, but right now our schedule shows us getting it on time. So I'm just telling you the way it is. But we have a contingency plan. If that doesn't come in, we'll do some temporary openings in those walls if we have to. Because they're not security. This is more for, weather, air. It's an air lock, if you will. The electrical is a big deal on this project. We're putting in all new switchgear, a new generator. You're going to have, Paul's going to love it. Right?
I am.
State of the art, you're going to love it.
I love the prints when we first started looking at them.
Yeah, so, and all that, we're taking that out of the main school, putting it in the wood chip addition. And you've got a new cooling system going in, which I think Paul's gonna like. All those components are there except for the generator, which is coming, I think.
First week of August.
The first week of August, right? So, and then we're doing an addition for the electrical room too, where that old cool, I don't know if everybody's familiar with it, but out back, there was a big ugly cooling tower in the pit. And that's gone now, and we built a floor deck over it and a roof system, and that's got some switchgear in it also. And Swanton Electric is providing a new primary service to the building, getting rid of one of the old poles that was out of date. And it was a shutdown today. I don't know, do you know what happened there, Rachel, on the shutdown today?
Well, I was there.
Yeah.
So we did the changeover for the power to the new transformer, the new switchgear and everything. Everything went very smoothly. We were expecting till about 5 o'clock tonight. We ended up returning the power back on into the building about noontime, and so everything went great.
So the IT department's happy?
Oh, yeah.
Runs off from the school, so we need power to keep them guys up and running too.
So that took a lot of coordination, and it was really nice to work with a local utility company. I don't think it would have run as smooth if we had been working for maybe a larger utility company, but it's nice that you have a local service like that, it really is. So that was a big milestone today to get that power shut off, turned back on, and now we're going to just start feeding systems into the building as we're energizing it. Now we're going into our main distribution channel, so that was a big challenge. We had this July 16th date set for what, a month, Paul, or so? Maybe, so we hit that date. So we've been consistently hitting some dates that were critical, so I'm feeling good. I've done probably 20 school projects throughout my career, and they're all a challenge. They all at the 11th hour. There's always some loose ends hanging there. It's how you finish and get it to a point where it's occupiable, and it might be a couple of Saturdays to do some punch list things and stuff like that. But I'm feeling good that we're going to, DEW feels good that we're going to get you on time.
Very good.
If anybody's got any questions on it, but.
I have a question for Paul. Tell us a little bit more about the power pole. I didn't realize power poles got outdated.
The power pole?
Yeah.
So what it was the original transformer was right up next to the school. And so with the interconnect between the main building and J-Pod, and we're changing our service size and everything, looking at it, it was more feasible for us to put the new main service, instead of it being at the school, is actually in the wood chip boiler building, and we're feeding a sub-panel to the school for whatever the school needs, and we have the majority of the power, the generator, and our distribution down at the wood chip boiler plant now.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you meet monthly? Is that when you meet?
We meet twice a month, first and third Tuesday.
So we'd be happy to come back in, middle of, so would you meet in the middle of August?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be the 1st of August and middle of August.
Middle of August? If you want, we can come back, and that's getting close to when school opens, so we probably want to have you come back and give you an update if you need it, so.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Tim
All right.
Rachel, for coming out.
Okay,
Great to see you tomorrow morning.
thank you.
Is there any other
Thanks
questions
for having us
me,
first
or
on the agenda, too.
I
That was
know, I
nice.
promised you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me, or are you all set?
I believe we're all set.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for coming,
Thank you.
Paul.
evening.
Thank you.
Okay, on to annual snapshot presentation, Kosha.
So last time I was here talking to the board, I shared with you some of the results of the integrated field review, which is one of the ways the Agency of Ed is providing us some qualitative data around how we are making progress towards the educational quality standards. In June, they released the annual snapshot, which is another way that they are providing some kind of evidence to the community members to see how the schools in our district, now one district, are making gains. So here you just see like a visual of there's the educational quality standards and then the annual snapshot, which is what I'm going to talk about. We already talked about the integrated field review and how all this information really informs our continuous improvement plans. What the snapshot is designed to do is really reflect on those educational quality standards goals, help us to identify strengths and needs, really guide our continuous improvement, and provide a holistic view of school systems. And it reduces the reporting burden for schools and SUs because all this information that I'm going to share with you is on a public website now. So anyone can log into, and I'll share the link with you, can log into that and they can put in the name of a supervisory union or a district in Vermont or even a school and look at the annual snapshot data. It also is doing something that now is becoming more and more important, which is equity. They're really wanting schools to think about, are we providing equitable education to all our students, including those students who were traditionally disadvantaged in some way? And are we closing the gap between those marginalized students and our privileged students? So one big part of the snapshot is providing data on equity. And then the last part of it is determining eligibility for comprehensive and equity schools. There are very few schools in the whole state who qualify for that, and those are schools which are struggling in many, many areas, not just academically. That data was already released, and none of our schools qualify for that. So just to give you a quick review, the educational quality standards were academic proficiency, personalization, safe and healthy schools, high quality staffing, and investment priorities. So far in the data that's been released this year in June, only academic proficiency is being reported at this time.
Do we know when the other sections was on?
Yeah, I'm just going to talk
sorry.
about that.
Sure they are.
So what they gave us in June was, if you look at the dates, it gives you version 1, version 2. So they're going to be releasing some more data in September and then December. And then by December of 2020, they're going to release all the data that they're promising us, which currently, like I said, is only giving us information on English language arts, math, and science. But we will start seeing some of the other information by 2020. Can you go to the next slide?
Yep.
So if you look, they are not only going to provide information about our proficiency, but they're going to also include information on staff satisfaction with professional development. They are going to talk about, do we have properly licensed teachers? What's the school climate? In spring of 2020, they are going to introduce a new climate survey that all students and staff will be taking, and that's going to be an assessment for them to be able to give this kind of information. So they're going to be fully operational by December 2020. This year's data is actually based on the 2017-2018 year. Since they were just creating this website and they wanted it to be open to the public, it took them a longer period of time to get it up and running. So from this current year, so the May SBAC, they're hoping it'll be up by December of this year. So they're going to do a 6-month lag period and try to get it up much sooner than they did the first time. So the group of students that they're really concerned about is the ones that we want to focus on to close the achievement gap. The students that are historically marginalized, and this includes racial and ethnic groups, students with disabilities, English language learners, students in poverty. So those are the students that they are now putting together in one group, and they're seeing that your students who are already privileged versus these students, are you closing that gap in terms of achievement or not? So.
Did you want to say more about that?
No, I think we can. So here's the equity index. They are providing us this information so that we can understand where those gaps are, and then we can address them through our continuous improvement plans. They also want the community members to be able to understand where our needs lie, so when we prioritize investments, we know why we are making those investments. It also helps the state to understand in terms of the whole state of Vermont where some of these gaps are and how they can provide us technical assistance or other kinds of assistance. And then, of course, the big idea is to continuously inform our continuous improvement plans. What the annual snapshot does is it provides you ratings, and these are just the icons that they're using to help us understand where we are in terms of implementing our educational quality standards. And I'll talk more about it when I talk about our data. So how it comes together is the ultimate goal is to provide you with information about each of those educational quality standards. And so you might see a chart like this for MVSD in terms of what is the current performance in our district, what is the change. So was there a change in performance over last year's data? And then they're going to provide you information on that equity index. So based on your current scale scores, what is your performance? Is it meeting, above, excelling, or not meeting? And then the change. So they're also going to be tracking change over time. So they'll provide you equity data for this year, but they're going to track whether we are reducing that gap over the next few years. So if you look at that link, that is the link that is a public link. It's just schoolsnapshot.vermont.gov, and anybody can log into that and get information about a school system. We can move to the next one. So this is what it actually looks like. And what they've done is they provide you those icons which show whether you're meeting the standards or not. And then they also have numbers. So if you look down there, there's a scale score from 1 to 5. And they show you in terms of your progress towards that 5. And that's what our ultimate goal is, to get to that.
And this is ours, our overall performance?
Yeah. So what I just wanted to show you in this one is as we look at our data, the way they weighted your performance was based on 14% was taken from English language proficiency assessment, 28% was based on your graduation rates, 2% was based on the science assessment, another 28% was English language arts, and then 28% was math. So that's how your overall performance is weighted based on all those criteria.
Why is science so low?
One of the things is that they just started piloting that science assessment, and so they don't have enough information to be able to give it more right now.
Okay.
But currently, that's the percentage that they're counting. I think the major emphasis has been on language arts and math, but it may change.
The students didn't get their individual science results. We don't actually have the school results from the science pilot from 2 years ago. But our understanding is that across the state, people didn't do very well. But we've also not seen the results and then changed instruction or done anything there.
Got it.
So it's very much a baseline.
And also, science is not administered in every grade level, whereas
Right.
in English language and arts and math, they take the assessment from third grade every year. And then in science, it's just fifth grade, eighth grade, and 11th grade.
Okay.
So that's why the weightage is different. So here you can see this was Franklin Northwest data from 2017-2018. In English language arts, we met the performance criteria, and the change shows you the progress you've made from the previous year. We were excelling in that. Equity index we didn't meet for English language arts. In math, we were approaching the performance requirements. And again, the change or the growth was excelling. So that was good to see. Equity, again, we didn't meet. And then in science, we did not meet the performance expectations or the equity ones. But once again, it's just in the beginning stages of that.
I'm sorry but I really, this is great stuff, but I don't understand the equity index. What is that measuring against?
So the equity index is seeing whether your students who are traditionally marginalized, right, and your students are traditionally privileged. So they take these groups separately and they see the achievement gap between them. So they take the average scale scores and they see what's the difference. So if they find there's a huge gap, then you would see you're not meeting that equity requirement.
And this is the students within Franklin Northwest.
Kids living in poverty, kids with disabilities, kids with
English language
English language
But nothing
learners.
within the state, just within our.
This is comparing our kids to our kids.
In our cluster.
So they take that group, take their data, take the other group of those who would be privileged, take their data, compare them.
Yeah, and they will give you a comparison with state also.
There is?
Yeah, they haven't been able to compile it yet because it's the first year they're reporting it, but they are hoping to be able to give you that comparison with the state. So you can see how your district is doing, and then you have a context in terms of how the state is doing. Because they are really committed to reducing that equity gap.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one more question where it shows performance current versus change. Does that mean that in the past we were exceeding, or does that arrow mean that we're improving?
It's exactly that.
Yeah. The change is the growth from the previous year. So when they have a certain trend line, right, that they're expecting this much of growth in
So
1
we're
year.
exceeding it.
So we were exceeding the expectations in terms of growth. Yeah.
So it's nice because before we were measured on a point in time. Your kids were proficient or not, you know, you're failing, you're not failing. If there was no recognition of, yes, we were here, but now we're here, and then we're here, we're doing all this work, and it's showing, and we're getting credit for that work and the growth of student performance. And now they're weighting equally in how much improvement our students are making.
Sure.
Next.
So here you can see specifically in English language arts. So there, when they said that we were meeting, if you look at the numbers on a scale of 1 to 5, we were at 3.01 and the state of Vermont was 3.10. So then you can see how close we are to what's happening at the state level. In terms of growth, we had a 3.10 growth, whereas the state had 3. And that's why we were excelling what they expected.
I got a question. So
Sure.
the growth is our improvement?
Improvement from the previous year, yeah. And then they also give you the performance change. So there are 2 ways they are looking at it. They are looking at growth from the previous year, but they're also tracking the growth of the same group of kids over 3 years. So they are also taking, say for example, there was a group of 3rd graders. After 3 years, that group of 3rd graders, did your students maintain that trend of growth, or did they drop off somewhere? So they are going to be able to give us both growth from the previous year as well as growth over 3 years. And then the current equity index is exactly what they said we didn't meet it, but the state of Vermont didn't meet it either. So you can see we had a scale, we had a rating of 1.7 and they were 1.99. So we are not that far off. So it is a statewide problem that they really want to tackle. This was the math, and you can see in math we didn't meet, but we are approaching, and so was the state of Vermont. They're also approaching the math standard. The growth again was 3, which was meeting. So in terms of the growth our students are making, we are doing okay, but we still haven't quite reached the benchmark. And then the performance change was in Franklin Northwest. We had not improving because we didn't show as much growth as they thought we would in math. But the state of Vermont, it's declining. So we did better than the state in terms of that. And then again, the equity index was 1.49 and the state of Vermont was 1.86. So again, in math, we are seeing that gap again, and we have to really be able to start addressing that. In science, we did not meet, just like most schools in the state, and we didn't meet the equity too. The one thing that Julie did want me to share with you is there were very few schools in the state of Vermont which met the science performance expectations, and Franklin was one of them. So, yeah. This is our English language proficiency. We had just had 14 kids in our district who are English language learners, and we did meet the performance requirements for them. If you look at the actual score out of 5, it was 3.2. This was our graduation rate, and current performance we were meeting, but in terms of change from the previous year, we are showing a decline. This is happening also through the state, so it's a concern for everybody, like what do we need to do at the high school level to maintain those graduation rates. And then down below, you just see the same thing, but in terms of the rating on a 5-point scale.
I got a question I just thought of. Is all this data for our district? You said Franklin Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Does this include or exclude Sheldon?
This includes Sheldon because
so next,
it's based.
will they be able to take that data out and send it with Sheldon next for this year? And then how much is that going to skew us or change things? I mean,
That's a really good question, and I will definitely ask them at the state level. We did have to do a lot of back and forth with the state this year just to make sure that Sheldon was taken out of a lot of things. But when I report our data for SBAC again this year, it's going to be with Sheldon because they were with us 2018, 2019, and that will change. So as of now, I don't know what impact it's going to have on next year's data, but I'm sure it will have some impact.
do you still have a question, Terry?
Actually, It's not as good as that question.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It's kind of about the school separations, and I was wondering, Franklin, the elementary school, their science, and when you're doing a continuous improvement, I'm just curious if, do they break out the high school? And how does that look different from the elementary schools? And I'm just curious about how science, since they have dedicated science teachers up in the high school, if that makes any kind of impact. And I asked this question way back because when we were doing our equity and what was being covered in schools, science seemed to be the most disparate.
It is. It's something we're working on. We were talking about it just today in our literacy audit conversations about in the elementary school bringing science and social studies content into literacy so that kids are reading and writing nonfiction at an earlier age and building vocabulary so that they are more ready for middle and high school science. Because it's not the same. It's one of our areas that needs a lot more work, I would say. It's all about time.
Thank you.
So this is our grade 3 data, and again you can see they gave us data by grade level also. In English language arts we did meet the requirements. In math also we did meet in 3rd grade. There's 4th grade, again we met in both English language arts and math. So our 3rd and 4th graders are actually doing really well. And this year and last year they exceeded the state scores. 5th grade, we start seeing a little bit of problem because you can see over there under English language arts they are approaching, and even if in math they're approaching. So we've really got to start looking at 5th grade and seeing there is a big shift in terms of expectations from 4th to 5th grade. So how do we address that and make sure that we are providing that kind of a deep level of knowledge that they need?
We also talked earlier in the year when we did an SBAC presentation about how the 3rd and 4th graders have had Common Core instruction. They have had the instructional framework work and the just concentrated professional learning that our teachers have had across the SU has been in place, and we're really seeing those kids move.
Right.
And we're still seeing here in 5th grade, an increase in change that kids are still showing. But you can really see the difference between those kids who have had nothing but those learning experiences and kids that maybe we're closing the gaps in a few places there as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad Julie pointed that out, because in the performance change, which is the change from the previous year, we are still seeing that there is improvement happening. So our math scores are improving, but they're still not where we want them to be. This is again grade 6 data, and we were approaching in English language arts as well as in math. We didn't meet. So 6th grade, for some reason, there was a real struggle, and we really have to start digging into that data further to see why are we seeing that. Part of it is what Julie said, is those kids haven't had Common Core since kindergarten, whereas our 3rd and 4th graders have. And so the teachers had to make a shift in the way they were teaching also.
Although I do think it's promising to see that from year to year, 6th grade was improving.
Yeah, we are seeing, we were meeting the growth goals, so that's at least positive that we are in the right direction in terms of seeing improvements. This is grade 7, and again we met, you can see Franklin Northwest as well as Vermont. We were meeting for English language arts. In math, we were approaching, but the growth was meeting. So again, like I said, we are making gains, but we still have a ways to go.
It's good the change in those 3 years for students was excelling in math as well as English. So that's wonderful.
This is grade 8 data. Again, in English language arts, we met both the current performance as well as the performance change we were excelling in that for grade 8. And in math, we did not meet the scale score requirement, but the growth we were meeting. So there is growth happening over time. And the performance change was excelling again. That's fine.
Sorry.
Here's grade 9. In grade 9, we had approaching on the scale scores for English language arts, and then meeting for the growth. And in math, we did not meet the requirement, but we are meeting the expectations for growth. And then here's our science data. So you can see grade 5, grade 8, and grade 11. And we did not meet in all 3 grade levels, but that's one area where we have really started to focus some professional development for teachers at the elementary level. We started it last year. It's going to continue because we really want to make sure that they feel confident about being able to teach science. We've really focused a lot on literacy and math, and we conducted a few surveys for our K-6 teachers just in terms of, what do you need, what kind of PD do you want, and that's going to continue next year, as well as we have a consultant coming in to work with the high school teachers, especially our new teachers, on delivering of science content. So just to end, I think we have to celebrate our success. We are seeing an upward trend in terms of growth, and I think it's something to celebrate just in terms of the amount of work that we've put in, and we are seeing some results now. To continue to strengthen our literacy and math instruction, to maintain that growth that we are seeing, to provide professional development for science, definitely, and then continue implementing our continuous improvement plans. And my goal is to share with you the SBAC data from this year. I did contact the state today to ask when the state's data will be ready, because just looking at your data in isolation doesn't give you a context. And Michael Hawk said it should be ready in the next couple of months before school opens. So as soon as I have that, I'd like to present it to you, because this is 2017-2018 data, and SBAC is going to be 2018-2019. So we'll be able to see whether those trends we are seeing here continue or not.
This is fantastic. Not only seeing the growth, but as I've only lived in the area for 6 years, and one of the things that I know I looked at, and I know other families with young kids look at, are the schools in the area. And you go onto Realtor or Zillow or something, and they have ratings, and I feel like they're so inadequate. And so being able to have something like this, not just for us, but for the entire state, is fantastic. That's going to be fantastic.
So, when you get a chance, you can go onto that website and dig further. There is a lot of other information if you're looking for more specific disaggregated data. If you want to look at specific groups of kids, there is a lot of information there. And like you said, it's really exciting to be able to share that with community members, where people can go in and, they can see what we are proud of and what we are working on. Sure.
Are there any discussions with the Agency of Education or the curriculum people of the state that we need more time? I mean, we have 175 school days, and we're trying to compete in the world with places that have 200 school days. And I'm pleased with what I'm seeing. I've been on the board 5 years. But I think it's totally unrealistic to think we're going to continue to grow and grow and grow and do better and better when the time variable is fixed. I think we're trying to address it through summer school and after school, but after school is not really academic from my perception. So, I hope somebody in the state steps up and says, if you expect these young people to do more and do better, maybe we need to provide more time for instruction, more time for learning. So I'm just asking, if that's not happening, I would ask you to carry that message to them.
Well, that's a really good point, but I think that as they start examining that equity data from the whole state, they're going to start thinking about, okay, if we are not closing that gap, what can we do? And it might be extending the school year in order to meet the requirements for those kids who need extra time or who need further instruction that we are not able to provide during a regular school day. We do offer tutoring, which is academic after school. A lot of our teachers who participate in that tutoring process, and we also provide some over summer. But for those kids who we are talking about who are traditionally marginalized and they're at a disadvantage, sometimes that may not be enough. So I think that it's a good point. I think that the state is collecting this data in order to be able to make some of those determinations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kasia.
That was
Thank you
really
very
well
much.
presented. That's a lot of information that you presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to new business. Hiring updates, information and action.
So, shuffle my papers here. 4 of you over here. What we've done is Bonnie Moulton put together a table with all the folks, if you could pass that to Sharon, who have been hired so far this summer. Chris has signed off on their contracts. And then also there are 3 at the top that will be asking you for authorization for, pass it down, all right. Authorization for Chris to sign their contracts. So Chris and I met the other week and talked about how we wanted to present information. I'll make sure everybody's got it. So as you can see, we have from the blue down, we have all of the folks that have been hired as new teachers, new professional teachers in our buildings this summer. Your principals have been very busy, as has HR. The positions we are coming to you with today, we have a new special educator, Timothy Arthur, for MVU. We have a middle school math interventionist, Brian Cole, for MVU Middle School. And we have Elizabeth Hodson, who's going to be a new kindergarten teacher for us in Swanton. Those are the positions we're looking for your authorization for Chris to sign their contracts.
I'll entertain a motion to allow the board chair to sign the 3 contracts previously discussed.
I'll make that motion.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of allowing the board chair to sign previously discussed contracts, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Who's on the, Julie?
Yes, sir.
Who does the interviewing?
The principals put together a team, and they interview.
Any board members?
We've not had board members interviewing teachers.
Okay.
Here you go.
Thank you.
The statute has superintendent recommending 1 candidate for a teacher 2 school boards. And what I'd like to do when it's not crazy, do we have a budget, are we a district time, next year, I would really like to work with principals on, one of the things we're going to be working on is a hiring process. How will it look different? Will it look different? And I would like to meet, I've met some of these candidates over the summer, but we also couldn't be getting in the way of Pat filling, a 3rd grade teacher position, for example, to have them sit and meet with me. We're moving pretty fast and furious to get high quality teachers in front of our kids. But I would like to see if there's something that we can do more proactively, because I would like to meet more of our teachers.
I'll just ask this. In the old days,
Absolutely. We used to do that in another land where I worked before.
board members was
Absolutely.
some of the board members would be on the interview committee. And so the board, which has the ultimate signing off, would know the candidates, look at the resumes, and give advice to whoever wants to sign it off. Just thought,
Have heard
just
that.
curious.
We used to meet one-on-one.
Yes, we did. It worked great too. Just throw it out there.
I think this year we were at fairly extreme disadvantage, but I would like to look at this whole issue going forward. I believe state law says that the superintendent recommends a candidate.
Yep.
Therefore, my expectation would be that no candidate came to the board till at least the superintendent had met them, whether it's a 5-minute interview or question. As I say, I don't think that was realistic the way we kind of got put in the box with some of the changes at the state level, but going forward, I really think that's critical. And I'm not saying that a board member should be, but I think we need to look at the process. I know it takes time, but it's a good investment of time, because if it doesn't work out, it takes a lot of time too.
Yeah, and you do have the ultimate. You're the one signing it off, and the public comes to you.
Yeah.
Screen.
So anyway, something to think about.
Okay, on to school board.
Did you vote?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Summer brain.
We're on to school board meeting structure discussion.
Oh, that's right. I was passing that out. So what we did is we put together a mock agenda. If I have an extra one, I'm going to give it to Pat and Jay.
I can hook on Megan.
And actually, I'm going to put it up.
Oh, okay.
Here it is, so that you can see.
I'd be lost without
Oh, you've got this extra one?
Yeah. So a couple of things that you may have noticed already that we've changed is, each school board had a different agenda format. Some had, finance update or, just different topics. Structurally, I think it's really nice and clean to have Chris and I talked about having the pledge, and the board wanted to do that, so I thought that was a good piece to do. But the consent agenda of the approval of the minutes would always be near the top. What we'd like to introduce is that you're going to have presentations at each board meeting. And that may be a presentation from the construction folks. It may be a presentation from curriculum or early childhood. It may be a presentation, my hope is that at least one meeting in the month when they're in an elementary school, and also regularly from MVU, that we have students in front of you talking about the activities and learning that they're doing. Even if it's a 5-minute, let's celebrate this kid's achievement and give them a certificate, and they can shake the board's hand. I think it's really important to have kids in front of the board. And then that would be at the top of our meetings. That everything else really falls into the new business, old business, other business structure of a board agenda. So that we would typically have new information, something someone brought up. Oh, I'd like to see, Dawn mentioned truancy at one of our meetings. So when we bring truancy, if it's not a presentation, but it's a topic, it would go under new business, for example. Old business, the warrants, the financial reports, things that we've discussed in previous meetings, maybe the policies that we've seen before that we're now going to adopt, those would be coming under old business. The superintendent's report will be having a newsletter regularly from me. And when I say me, I mean the central office folks. I write a portion of it, of course, but all of the administrators give me input and a piece of information of what's going on in their department. And then, and this is for Pat and Jay, Chris and I really discussed, because we've talked about it for quite a while, how to hear from the principals without having them all here all the time, all reporting. It really doesn't give enough focus on individual schools if you're the fourth one presenting and people are now tired, and it's, so it seemed as if we had two principals, two schools represented at each meeting, and that there would be a written report for you to see before the meeting, and that they would present their, an overview of that report. Is that square with what we were talking about?
Yeah.
Does it have to be, do we have to have two principals? We're at all schools, so that one school principal could present whatever.
The issue we had with that is we're going to be visiting the elementary school every third month.
Yeah.
And I don't want to wait every 3 months to hear from Franklin, Highgate, or Swanton. So we were discussing a way that we could hear monthly from every school without packing it all into one meeting where we're just trying to go through the motions and not,
Well, my concern was we're in Highgate and we're going to listen to the principal from Franklin, which I have no problem with, don't get me wrong. Just maybe we should talk about the Highgate principal and the issues at the school.
Oh yeah, when we're visiting, when we're in that school, that obviously that principal would be, their presentation would be within their school.
Okay.
So that's the main plan, is that when we're in Franklin, Joyce will present something about what's happening in Franklin.
Yeah,
Maybe there'll be kids, and then at the end of the meeting, when we get to the other business part, maybe there will be some upcoming happenings reported out from that principal,
Okay.
and then another principal will do the same thing.
Okay.
And you'll have something in writing. It's not a novel, but it's, and I've promised our principals that it will be.
Yeah.
But, so say on time when you're here in Highgate, maybe Pat and Joyce would be giving an update at the end of the meeting, and you'd have a little written report from Pat and Joyce. When we're at MVU, now every month will be at MVU. That doesn't mean that MVU is always on, but that would likely be the meeting where MVU would give their written report and give their update.
Okay.
And that way, principals, should there be a topic, when we do the student conduct and discipline policy, for example, probably you're going to see principals here from all the schools in case that there's input wanted. Because that's something they all deal with regularly. They're going to be handling and looking at and approving and vetting the policies before they come to you. But there may be times when the principals are saying, no, I'm coming tonight. But I want that not to be a command performance twice a month. I'd like it to be once a month. I want to, we want someone once a month.
I have a question now. There's 5 principals, or there's set up that, like MVU, how will you handle it? Will you handle middle school and high school, or how will that be?
I don't know. Do you have an idea about that, Jay?
No, I haven't thought that far.
Because 4 is even, you can do 2 and 1, and then 2 and 2, but if you start throwing 5 in, it's going to be 2, 2, 1, 2, you know what I mean?
MVU has traditionally done an administrator's report that covers both schools. So I don't see that changing.
And I think in the same vein, and I think probably Highgate has too, but, when we do Swanton, I expect if Justina's there, she'll
Absolutely.
participate with.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Highgate's very similar. Chris and Pat usually present.
So, my thought was that whatever school we're at, if we're at Highgate tonight, and I'm not saying for tonight, but my thought was, because we're only going to be there, like you said, every 3 months, or we'll be at that school, that meeting would have a heavy emphasis on the school we're at.
Yeah.
Like Highgate
That's
would
where I was
have
going.
have a bigger
That's what I was
presentation. Maybe we'll have another principal present, but we expect what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's their night to shine,
That's definitely our-
or not shine, however they choose.
My plan did.
Right. We don't want it to be a competition. Like, boy, did you see what Pat did? Now I got to one up them. But we
we don't.
But we don't want that. But we want it to be a spotlight on that school.
We want to know what's
Yeah.
going on at each school, and I think that's when you're at that school.
Absolutely.
I agree.
The first thing we're doing, Pete, is once we're in, I think the first tour is the second meeting in August in Franklin. Joyce was a little nervous about it because it's still, polishing the floors and getting everything ready. But then she said, don't you dare change it because now I've got a plan. But Now she'll watch this and be mad at me. But the first time we're in one of the elementary schools, and Jay and Dan will tell us when, and Paul, when the best time for MVU is, when, you know, the punch list is finished. We're going to do a tour. We're going to have the camera come with us so that the community can see.
that's nice.
And we're going to, you know, inside and outside. We want to do them quickly so we can get the outside as well and not have it be too snowy and cold or wet to go out. But that's the hope, so that we're not just, so we're looking at the building as board members, not just a presentation.
Nice.
I think one of the concerns, it seems like, is that we're not going to be giving the school we're at enough attention.
Exactly.
And in previous meetings, our discussion was, if we only go and do one, I'm not going to hear from my school, you know, my school, sorry. Our school, Swanton, you know, because if we only hear from them when we're there, then we won't get an update for what, 2 months, 1 month,
Right.
so that we would be more out of the loop with the other schools that were not at that month. So I think that was sort of
But
the.
don't
The
you?
way when we were, Julie and I talked about this a lot, and the way we were trying to break this down is we're not trying. That's exactly why we want basically 2 schools at each meeting to present. I agree with Pete. We do want to put a little more emphasis on the school we're visiting, because this is a great opportunity. We're, you know, at the school, let them show. But at the same time, let's just say Highgate and Franklin are paired together. We're in Highgate. We hear maybe a little heavier presentation from Highgate, but I still want to hear from Franklin.
Yeah.
And then at our other meeting, which is at MVU, I still want to hear from Swanton and MVU.
Right.
You know, and then that way every school has a chance to shine, but we still keep in the loop monthly.
I think it's brilliant.
Because we're in MVU every month, you know, we're also going to have central office presentations and that kind of thing. But we'll also change our leadership meetings a little bit so that they're timed the week before the board meeting, so that we can have conversations about who's presenting to the board, you know, what are you going to talk about? What are we going to do? Do we need to add to it? Do we need to, you know, so we're not going to get it perfect going out the gate. There's just no question. And I, having done this in that other school district, at first, they didn't do something where they heard from principals every month. You know, the first meeting of the month was central office reports, and there's tons to do and lots of information. But then they were going to a different school, and they felt like, gee, I haven't heard from this school in a while.
Right.
So they started having, you know, principal voices. So I would think the school we're visiting is going to do the presentation. They're going to be the upfront. They're going to be talking the most. And at the end of the meeting, we're going to hear what events are coming up in my school. We're going to be inviting school board members. I want to see if we can get the school board on the email list for the Friday memos and the, you know, those kinds of information that get sent out to parents in the community so that we're aware. I mean, I'm not on those lists, and now that I don't have a board meeting every night, I want to know, you know, when the middle school concerts are and when the, you know, when the little 3rd grade play that happens at 4 in the afternoon, those kinds of things that aren't necessarily the big events, but sometimes if you're not a parent. So I'd like you all to have opportunities to be invited to all those things too, because they are all our kids.
I want to just build on what you said there. I think if I was in a principal's seat and I wasn't on maybe at this point in time at the next board meeting, I would encourage them to make sure they submit written reports, whether it be via email or whatever. As a board member, I really get too much information than not enough. And in Swanton, there have been a few times that something happened that I would have gone to had I known about it, but I don't have a child in the school.
Right.
And I think Dean and Justina do a good job, but there's some things that probably don't necessarily seem to be a high priority to a board. So I would encourage administrators to err on the side of letting us know, particularly things like school. Something I think I've heard here twice tonight, I'd just like to throw out. I think this whole idea of 2 schools reporting, whether it's always the same 2 schools,
Probably not.
but I'm thinking back to my time on the boards, and I would like to see Franklin and MVU share at the same time. Because as an MVU board member, I've had more contact, more questions, more suggestions, and more good ideas come from Franklin parents. They're more active than either Swanton or Highgate. So, you know, you said, I think you said it, and I criticize you, about Highgate and Franklin. Well, that may be good, but I think that if parents are coming out, I would not always want to see the same rotation. And I don't know how you do that once you establish it. Yeah. And I know Joyce and Patrick could do a long time, but if you put the two MVU people on, and then you have Franklin, I think it's more of a balance. But I'm coming back to the people who have participated in board meetings, and I think questions come from the Franklin parents, which are good questions. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think that the challenge will be, because we're rotating our elementary school sites, we won't always have the same two people at the same two meetings presenting. Because if I'm presenting, if it's the first meeting of the month at MVU, and in the second meeting of the month you're going to Swanton, well, that's going to be my month for Swanton to do a presentation. That may be different the next month when it's Highgate's turn. So it will be a rotation.
I think we just mirror the rotation of the schools with the rotation of who presents with MVU.
So it'll be my job to make sure the principals know who's on first for each.
But once we create a rotation, so let's just say we go Highgate, Franklin, Highgate, Swanton. Well, then maybe the next month Franklin's with MVU instead of, because they're no longer at their home field, and then we just keep the rotation
We'll rotate
together.
them around. Yep. That's why we need to meet and talk
That's why
about
you're
it.
the chair, Chris.
Yeah. Anyway.
Another question we had discussed a little bit, would like the board's feedback on, is how would you like things to end up on an agenda? Do you want them to go through, do you want to send me an email? Do you want to use the correspondence or future agenda items part of the beginning of the meeting? I mean, what's the board's pleasure on that? Because there's been a lot of suggestions of possible future meeting topics, but we've got to make sure they don't just, that's where they lie and that's the end of it.
I'm going to suggest that anybody that has an agenda item, send it to you and to Julie, both of you. It doesn't mean if something comes up on the day of the meeting, people can't not bring it up. But we know when the agenda's being built, and I think the courtesy is that it goes to you and Julie, so you have it in advance to, and I think that'll work very well most of the time.
How many days in advance do you have to have?
We try to build it a week in advance.
But how many days, it has to be warned so many days in advance of the meeting, right?
It's 24 hours.
We usually warn it on the Friday, Pete. It's only a 24-hour warning.
Because isn't there a rule that once you've got that agenda warned, you can't change that agenda? You can add something to it, but you cannot make any motion or you cannot take any action on something you add to that agenda after it's been warned.
You really shouldn't, unless, you can in a small board, but we try not to do that. We may discuss an item that just came up. And if it's just sort of it's not really a motion, we're just sort of giving the nod to administration that we think this is a good direction kind of thing, that's one thing versus, listen, the public needs to have an opportunity to see that this is on the agenda and show up. So,
He
we
makes a good point.
typically...
It shouldn't be action. It should not
Shouldn't be,
action.
no. Not for action items.
No action.
So we have not yet scheduled the time of when Chris and I are going to meet, but it's going to be the week before.
So we should have it to certainly the Thursday before, the Friday before, the Tuesday would be, is that what you're saying? Follow that?
Sounds like Winnie the Pooh.
Full, I don't give them heads up.
I mean, even if you brought them up at the meetings, we are going to have, 2 meetings a month. So,
Yeah.
I mean, to put it on the following meeting agenda is not a big deal. I was just curious how you wanted to do that.
So would you email out the agenda like before you're going to warn it, like a day or two before and say, this is what we're looking at for the agenda, then if you wanted to make any changes, you'd still have time to say, I'd like to add this or talk about this? Or...
I believe there's going to be a document within our new email setup, right? That once we put a draft up, everybody can go in and look at the draft agenda before it's actually sent out for public warning.
Purette will ask me on a Friday, is it good to go? And so when I say it's good to go, that doesn't mean sometimes a small change won't happen and we won't make an agenda amendment at the top of the meeting. And sometimes there's reasons to do that, but we don't do it that often.
So in other words, we should try to make any add or changes before that Friday, so.
Still going to the
Right.
board chair, yeah, contacting Chris. We'll probably meet like the Tuesday evening before, or the Wednesday evening before, depending on your kids' schedules and all that kind of thing. And then the administrative team will be meeting on the Thursday in the morning. Part of that meeting will be reviewing the agenda and seeing what they need to prep for. And then it'll be warned on the Friday. That's, God willing, and the creek don't rise kind of, planning. But typically that's how that goes. And what I do want to show you, if I can do this right, now you have a school district email that is in our domain, which means it's secure and FERPA compliant, for example. So these are my shared drives that I belong to. And there's Sheldon, and eventually they'll cut me off. But there's a folder that that says MVSD Board 2019-20, and you should have that in your email, in your drive. And then within it, there'll be a folder. You'll always see whatever I was opening or looking at last, or somebody else, because it's shared. So if Pete's looking at the agenda, that'll sort of show up that somebody was looking at that. But I will put a folder for each board meeting date. And then the draft agenda, warrant sheets, anything like that will go right in there for your review as soon as it's ready. So, everybody has different routines. People like to, over the weekend, review the materials, or the night before, or in the car while they're driving here. Whatever the plan is, you have that opportunity.
Let's hope.
So that we're, the hope is that we can have, without so many board meetings, we have more time to make sure the materials are ready for you so you can review them. And there won't be as many surprises.
And it's good to know that also with Drive, you can change your settings. If you want to get notified when something new has been added, you can. So if you want to find out every single time somebody touches one of the documents, you can get an email.
Probably too many ding, ding, ding.
Right.
You on a front,
but if there's something in particular that you're looking for the agenda, you can set up notifications when a new document is.
And my goal is always going to be that, because I know board members tend to want to do these things on the weekend when they have a little downtime, because you all have busy lives like the rest of us. So my goal is that everything would be in there on a Friday.
You did that this time.
Did I mostly do that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I meant that.
You got it out there a while ago.
Where does the public find it?
This is just for the board.
Right.
The public, the agendas and the minutes will be on the website, the mvsdschools.org
When they're
website.
warned.
The
Right.
warning goes up there, and then there'll be a space for meeting minutes.
And they're posted too. They'll be posted in the town clerk's office.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, just as always. When you organized, you determined where you wanted.
Another good place if people are looking for it and you want a notification for it. I don't know about Franklin or Swan, but Highgate posts everything on Facebook. As soon as the SU sends it over, all you have to do is like them on Facebook, and you get the pop-ups. I see the agendas there before I see them anywhere else. So.
We have, I have talked to Robert about how I want to redesign the school district Facebook account, because I don't like the way the Franklin Northwest one is set up. So instead of starting a new one, we got to roll it over so we don't lose the people who have belonged to it already. But we're going to overhaul that a bit, and that will be another place for notifications to be as well.
Any other suggestions or structure ideas people have?
I have a question about the executive session bullet. So I'm not sure how it was done in the other schools. At Swanton, if we weren't expecting it, it wouldn't be on the agenda.
Correct, if it came up. So say we were talking about hiring, and we were going to hire Terry here. And Julie knew some, I don't know, and we just said, oh, I have some questions, then we'd have to make a finding that there was a need to go into executive session because of confidential personnel information. And then we would be, if the board made that finding, then later when it was time for executive session at the end of the meeting, we would then have a motion to go into executive session for that purpose. But it's not good enough for it to just be personnel or,
Right, I think my question was more, if I was looking at this one agenda, if executive session was not listed, in my head, there was nothing at that point that
Right.
we assumed was going to warrant it. There's still the
Yes.
opportunity.
Right.
So will this always be
The
on
template,
here?
you mean the template?
The template, right. Will it always be on here just
This
in
is
case?
the template, I've gone back and forth about that. It's something I'd love your feedback on. I don't want to go into executive session when we don't need to go into executive
Right.
session. It's not an opportunity to, gossip or tell, not that these folks have been marvelous, but no, seriously, all the boards have been wonderful about executive session. And I don't mean to intimate that. But it is important that that we use it when, listen, we're going to be going in because we're going to have negotiations, 2 sets of them this year. There will be opportunities that, it's very appropriate for that.
And the
But
rules are always stated the same.
Yes.
Every single agenda.
I wouldn't
that
put it on the
just
template.
I would put it on every meeting.
You would?
Yes,
You
I
would?
would.
Yeah.
I would. I'd put it on, because that says to the public there is the potential for it.
Yeah.
And let's say you don't have it on there, and on the late afternoon of, hey, there's some big controversy with a parent or a student, and you go into it, and then people are gonna criticize us for saying, well, if we'd have known there was gonna be executive session because some kid got bounced from school for selling drugs, and we know he's the best kid in the world, and we wanted to be there. So I would put it there as a safeguard.
Well, we wouldn't have known that either.
Wow. I think it's covering yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
like
get
to.
better safety.
I think it's a
sorry.
simple safety net. It doesn't. If we don't have to go in executive session, it's flat out a line on the thing that we bump on quick and move
Yeah,
on.
potentially.
I like
we've gone
using it.
around on it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that feedback because that's why we put potential, because we don't want anyone to think we're going to, right?
Potential
It's-
is.
Yeah.
So we
Oh,
put
potential.
potential. There have been times at board meetings we haven't had it because we didn't need it.
If somebody knows something when they get here.
As long as it's potential, I think that's okay.
Okay.
Because either way, you,
One thing I would suggest is if, like you were talking about negotiations, I would put anticipated.
Yes, absolutely. Because then we have a scheduled,
Right.
known agenda item that
Yeah.
should go under that.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
And if it's anticipated, that'll bump our adjournment time too, so folks can know that.
but I do think it sends out if you have it on there just saying executive session, it doesn't bode well for transparency in terms of PR, but putting potential, I think it covers both.
Well, it notifies the public that
Yeah.
we're.
It's
thinking
possible,
about
but we wouldn't do it unless
it.
we had to.
Right.
And the other thing is the adjournment at 8:30. I mean, we're going to have 2 meetings a month. So I don't think we need to have big, if we're going long on an item, we can say, do you want to pick this up next? Do we need to make a decision about this
Right.
tonight? Can we do it at our next meeting?
Yeah, I was surprised when I looked at the minutes that you guys went to 9:20 last time.
It's because
That
we
was-
had those
that was policies.
We had a dog 30.
27.
Oh, okay.
27.
I was
It just
like,
felt
oh my
like-
God, I'm glad I did when I did.
But yeah, I just wanted to try and be respectful of your time because there will be negotiations committees. There will be 2 meetings a month, and I think 2 hours. There will be nights we don't need 2 hours, but
I kind of like leaving the adjournment at 8:30. It gives us the ability to go to 2 hours, but I also like that as being our cutoff. Because as Mr. Roddy can attest, we've had meetings in the parking lot because we had to leave because the alarms were off for here so long. So
That was at 11 o'clock.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, I think that, if we go to schools and do justice, at least the first few times, it's gonna run.
Exactly.
you just have to-
When we're doing tours
I'm
and
just
stuff
gonna
like
have to
that, we're
remember
definitely
that.
probably
It's
gonna go
too
2
much
hours in meetings and stuff like that.
absolutely.
And until we figure out how to do this and learn how to walk we're gonna stumble a few times, so.
Absolutely.
You know, by the way, after like 9 o'clock, you don't really get anything done.
That's right.
You know, you're, most of you have worked all day.
I'd like to go back to, what we're talking about meeting dates.
Just for me.
I know it's only July.
Want to hit it? No.
But I would like to see us have a discussion about budgets and process and everything fairly early on. Maybe not August, but no later than October. I think constructing a budget, I was a little surprised when I got back on the Swanton board, how simple it seemed to be, because everybody else was doing a lot of work back at the office. And, they came in and stuff looked very good, and I don't know about the other board members, but I kind of nodded, so that would be a question. But I think this is a whole new ball game, so I don't want to see the first draft of any ideas in December. Because I think there's going to be a lot more discussion and a lot more looking at the moving parts.
Yeah.
So I guess it's an ask rather than a tell. But for people working on budgets, I know by September I'd like to see some kind of discussion, or October at the latest, so we know where we're going.
At least start the discussion then
Yeah.
instead of starting it later.
That'll help
Absolutely.
with the public too, since that was a big issue. The transparency and, inviting folks, we start talking about budgets way before. So being able to have something and also have it on the agenda, I think that'll be helpful for the public too.
The administrative team is going to be working differently on the budget, and that's why we're meeting more frequently, so that we can talk about positions and sharing and reprioritization of things based on our student results and things like that. So we're going to be working hard on it for you. So earlier the better.
Yeah, because I really don't want to build another budget in a short order like we did this time.
No, that was not
was painful
enjoyable
for everyone.
for anyone.
So, any other suggestions or comments for this meeting structures? Hearing none, we can move on to old business, the lease agreement that I believe the email we got yesterday.
I had emailed the board members, hopefully everyone had a chance to receive that. MVU engages in a technology lease every year for Chromebooks, so do many of our other schools. MVU is on a 3-year cycle, so every year they engage in another one. I solicited rates from Gorham Savings Bank at 3.5%, HP Financial at 4.31%, and MLC at 5.99%. Historically, MLC has has always won the solicitation, but not this year, so I'm not sure what happened. But when I go to my Tri-State PASBO conference, I gather all those lease company cards and I email them and we use them, and it worked out this time. So I'm asking that you approve the 3.5% with Gorham Savings Bank. It is a 3-year lease with an annual payment for a little less than $50,000, about 170 Chromebooks.
So I'd entertain a motion to, now does the whole board have to sign this one, or is it just the chair?
Just authorizing the board chair, or if it's easier because you are meeting every 2 weeks, which is great, I can just bring that the next time.
Okay.
I could have the documents by then and just sign it at the board meeting.
Okay. So you need a motion to allow you to move forward with Gorham. Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to allow Laura to move forward with Gorham Savings Bank at 3.5%.
I'll make it.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
What are these for? This for the high school?
High school Chromebooks for
Just the high
students.
school?
Student replacement cycle, just high school. I will be bringing you one for Highgate at some point. Possibly Swanton. We were trying to get on one cycle this year, but just with the delay in setting up our new software and all the work Robert was trying to do with SLDS and merging into MVSD, we weren't able to get on one cycle. It is our goal to get into one leasing cycle.
Is there any way to, is it form or is that the one, is there any way to contact them and let them know that there's more coming?
Well, they already know. Yeah, I let them know.
So you can get on the same rate?
I'm hoping it might be even better, but
Oh.
yeah.
bigger better.
Once they get our business, they like to try to keep our business historically, but I still will have to go out to bid. They're large enough, they're over $15,000, so I still will have to solicit more than 3, but I made them aware that we were gonna be looking for more. But next year I'd like to do it as a large
Right.
batch, yeah.
You mentioned all the schools but Franklin. Where does Franklin fit in with Chromebooks? And do they have plenty? Do they need more?
Typically, actually, I think they have engaged in a lease in the past. They're not on this. They don't have the volume of students, and they also were utilizing their Chromebooks. They weren't using Chromebooks actually. They're using a different device, and that's being talked about too. But they were actually extending their shelf life, so to speak, and getting another year out of them also. And so all those things are items that Robert is working with the tech directors and tech teams and tech support people on to try to figure out, and share knowledge.
So they have devices.
Oh yeah, they have devices. Yeah, they're one.
That was kind of.
Yeah, sorry.
But in the future, if you're gonna be combining all these, I think Franklin would.
And there is a statewide buyers group for these now too, and our copier leasing company, the third-party administrator that we use, also is looking into doing a bulk purchase on these. So it's all things we're looking at, unfortunately, this year, and have a lot of time to investigate those things, but it's all on our radar.
That's great. Yeah, those are the kind of efficiencies we hope to maximize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other
But it's
discussion?
amazing, I'm sorry not to interrupt you, but even the vendor quotes on these Chromebook units, they can vary on a $400 unit. It might vary $150 from vendor to vendor. So I'm pushing them to gather as many quotes as they can, because that per unit price, it's crazy what the variance can be from a vendor to a vendor.
Any other discussion for this motion? I guess we're ready to vote. All those in favor of allowing Laura to pursue Gorham Savings Bank at 3.5%, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Business office update.
So Julie included in her newsletter kind of a bulleted list of the items. Definitely not all encompassing of what the business office has been doing, but you can read through those. I really just want to take the opportunity to give a commendation to the staff in my office, because to say that they've been going above and beyond is definitely an understatement. We have people working till 9:30 at night and 6 o'clock in the morning, and to get the first payroll off the ground, which was last Friday, which was successful. The new database created, the new portals created, AP runs out and still closing out the new year and looking really good to be going into our audit in a couple months. So I just wanted to, on camera say that Sue Day, Marnie Carlton, Lisa Way, Michelle Stanley, Bonnie Moulton, Tamara Kelly, everyone in our office has definitely gone above and beyond, and I will be writing commendation letters to put in the business office staff's files. This is definitely a time when that is deserving. So I just wanted to make sure the board was aware.
Well, and thank you to Laura and Becky for their leadership and their incredible hard work in planning. Laura has been incredibly planful for this transition, given the loads of time we've had to plan for it, knowing that it was going to be ridiculously difficult, thinking about people's roles and responsibilities and how to be efficient and really prep for this. They've been amazing, so thank you.
We'll see next year.
I know. We'll actually be able to have some growth that we're in control over, and that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. So, but we've got a great team, and I just want to make sure the board is aware.
Absolutely.
The only other thing I just wanted to mention real quick in regards to the business office is you had graciously kind of given a blanket motion to help with administrative efficiencies as far as processing bills, reoccurring bills, contracts, things like that. The girls are starting to compile a list of those things. So next month I will give you a all-encompassing list of what that means to us. And if there's anything you have questions on or anything that you're concerned about, we can stop processing them that way, or we can at least answer your questions. So I just wanted you to know I'm not taking that lightly, the authority that you've given us. And in the interest of transparency, I just think it's important that we're all on the same page as far as what that means. Because when I was giving the examples, just want to make sure, it's consistent with your motion, so.
Very
I'll bring
good.
that next month.
Thank you. Any questions on the update?
I do have one. Laura, are you all set on this?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, and thank you so much to the Finance Committee for being so accommodating the last couple of weeks.
Just call me.
We would like to get on the schedule, if at all possible, to try to get a scheduled day, and have that kind of work along with the treasurer's signatures that we're receiving on Wednesday mornings right now, early mornings. If we got everything ready for you on Fridays, Monday, anytime, or Tuesday mornings, would that work for the Finance Committee to just be
Yes.
on that schedule? And would that be better for you than us reaching out and just saying, we need you here tomorrow? I mean,
Yes, that works. Megan is the third?
yes,
For-
yeah.
In case Devin's not around or something?
Yes, so what we were thinking is we could
Okay.
email all three of you, the first two to come, or if
Okay.
all three of you come, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay.
Is that okay?
Fine.
Yeah, I don't think Megan's the third. There's 3 people on the finance committee, and it's the
Right.
first 2 there to get things moving along.
It's
So the
Devin
finance
and
committee,
No.
it's Devin, Megan, and you.
That was
Yep.
the original situation.
No,
That was-
there's 3 of us.
Okay,
There's
okay,
3,
okay.
but we only need 2 signatures.
Okay, I got it.
So
In case someone's on vacation,
Flag.
doesn't mean we don't want all 3.
I mean, I can.
But you're closest, is one.
I think as much as
I
possible,
can hit
if the 3 can make it, I'd
Yep.
love to see the 3 there, but I think you're being respectful of schedules. If you're gonna be out of town or you have a family
Just
situation,
let me
you
know.
don't have to be
Well,
there.
I guess, so instead of letting you know,
Okay.
I guess this will be our schedule. I guess that's what I was hoping would be
Oh,
better for you
okay.
guys. So
Okay.
we will make sure that we have things prepared on Fridays, Monday, anytime.
For
We're
the
usually
first
there
few
early or
weeks,
late.
could we get a
you come to
reminder?
Oh, yeah, yes,
Because
yeah.
Until it's ingrained.
Yes, absolutely,
Please,
yes,
yeah.
We
okay.
could do a little Google Calendar reminder
No,
for you.
no.
Oh, I will. I get like
Nice.
800 of those
By the way,
things.
stop and swim.
I just
Start
don't,
doing that.
I feel very, I just want to be conscious of your time, and I hate reaching out to you and saying,
Oh, it's
you know, can you stop in the next 2 days? I don't know if that's
Yeah, me neither. I'm right there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on to other business, superintendent report.
So you have my report, a couple of highlights. We all got, I assume you all got from Vermont School Board Association, updates on the Commission on Public School Employee Health Benefits progress. It sounds as if they did meet in May and they did some work, and then they had a meeting. They didn't make any decisions. Their next opportunity, it might have been today or it's tomorrow. The negotiations will commence tomorrow about health care. And if they don't reach an agreement, they're starting to go into fact-fighting. Freudian slip there. Fact-finding and then mediation. And I don't think it would surprise anyone that they've sort of planned for that eventuality, that they wouldn't necessarily come to agreement. But and then finally binding arbitration all before December. So they're on a very tight timeline. So we'll be looking to see what happens with that tomorrow.
Blue Cross Blue Shield's first proposal was 15.6% increase. So be ready for it.
Yeah,
And we just had an 11,
I was just gonna
12%.
say,
almost
10 the year
12%.
before.
A few years
Money we're gonna save like
We
46.
don't know where it'll end up, but that was the first
So that's like
proposal.
almost a 50% increase.
In 3 years, yeah.
3 years.
That's, everyone's seeing that.
Oh, I know, yeah, I mean, I'm not,
Yeah, it's tough.
but it hits hard. So when you're talking about that first budget draft,
Well, the message is really clear. We're looking to be as careful as possible. Summer programming has started, and I'll let Carol come in August or early September meeting and really talk about all of what has happened. I do want to commend her and Jay and Pat. Actually, it's great you're both here. Both of them, because we had no idea how much power or how little power we were going to have at MVU. We had to relocate all of the programming that would have been at MVU. The theater program was here, which was wonderful. We had the Swanton Library was having kids.
Wow.
Some kids at St. Anne's. MVU's summer programming had to go to St. Anne's, which seems to be working out quite well. The lunch is happening there. The airport is hosting some kids, and they're doing some programming there as well. So Carol just really worked incredibly hard to pull it off, and it was really tremendous to make sure that we had programming for all of our kids. I really commend her for that. I also really want to commend our building and grounds folks. Paul was here earlier. I did thank him, but Highgate was in between folks. When we had a deadline of June 24th or 28th, everybody had to get every tap in every building surveyed and sent to the state. And all of a sudden it was, oh gosh, who's going to do it for Highgate? And Paul just said, I'll do it Thursday, it'll be fine. So, we really appreciate that support and how hard everybody came together to do that. The state gave us a very tight timeline. Every child care center and every school building will be tested. Their water will go through the Vermont Department of Health lab by December 19. So there will be a schedule, and it will get told, sample those taps. There's notification that will happen and all of that. So the board will be kept apprised of that as well.
What are they testing for?
Lead in water, parts per billion.
So it's not bacteria or anything?
Nope, it is the federal rule is 15 parts per billion, and the legislature set it in schools and daycares at 3 parts per billion. So it's a very, and of course, no lead is good.
Come out of our taps.
And actually, I can show you what it looks like, because one school district. Oh, and look how pretty the playgrounds are. Sorry. I went to the Franklin opening, which was fabulous and fun. The kids ran to the playground, and they have a wonderful sign thanking their donors. I will show you the lead in water reporting system after.
Did you see any public comments about I found it interesting.
On the playground?
Yeah.
What'd they
No.
say?
Kids that grew up through there were devastated.
Oh, well.
They were like, that playground, they
Meant
had
so
many
much to
memories.
me.
I just thought it was really cool. That
is
they,
interesting.
these are adults now, right? Young adults.
Yes.
Saying that it was just like devastating to see that their playground is gone.
Which it's
That's
so
interesting.
lovely.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have wanted to get splinters on it, though. It was so time.
That was their growing up.
I know. It's so.
No, it was definitely time. I found it really
That is
fascinating that it meant that much to them.
Yeah.
Well, so many people showed up. Not everybody seemed to have kids with them. So, it was wonderful to see the turnout there. And Swanton's is huge when you
Yes,
look at it.
it's
You just go like,
You can see the tower from the road
Yeah.
rising up above Babcock.
Oh no, it was Denise McGaley from her house across the street.
Oh,
One of the
it's
teachers
amazing.
at Swan said that she now sees this tower
Yep.
up
Oh,
above.
that's so funny.
My son is so excited. He's like, so we can go up there and I'm going to be able to see the road? Yes, you are.
It's in New York.
So it's really, I know you sort of get for that.
I can see New York.
So Justina told me that they're going to have probably a grand opening in
Yes.
September.
Yeah. Hopefully a
and-
Saturday.
On a Saturday, so hopefully the board will be able to come to that. It's great. It's good. My husband walks the dog all over Swanton Village, and he's always telling me he's always telling me, well, something's going up right by the. I'm like, yep, that's
We keep
playground.
making drive-bys to see the progress.
Yeah.
And like,
It's great.
yeah, oh yeah, the kids are super excited.
So it's going to be wonderful. I do want to show you a little bit just for the community, if I can find the darn thing. Okay. Yeah, let's go back to playgrounds, then we'll go back to lead and water. So much more fun. So you will be able to go. A couple of pilot schools were tested already, and you'll be able to go and find your school. Basically, Maple Run said that they would be okay to do it because I think they had done a pilot before. But I'll show you Barry because they're farther away, so that's
Good, I can see what my nephews are.
And so you can search it, and we can see what Spalding High School's tap. So they have some taps that have 60 parts per billion in them. So there are actions that will happen, and what will happen up as a result. And you can see, it identifies specifically classroom, room 101, and then there will be signage in that room. So when our schools are done, this is what we'll see. Only ours will be perfect.
And you said federal is 15?
And I was
So the
just-
water coming into our school from the municipality can be 15 parts per billion, but once it's in a school or a childcare, it has to do with our
Filtering.
our faucets and things. And that's the extent of my knowledge about it. I'm not gonna pretend to know more.
Well, I was
But-
going to say, if they fix one faucet, is that
Right.
going to make it so the others have more leaks?
Really, it has to do with the fixtures in the
that
tap
sink.
itself.
Okay.
That's my understanding. And we are not, say we lived in some terrible place where we didn't have good water, we are
Like Flint,
lucky,
Messenger.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
That would not be, we would not be penalized for what is coming into the building. It's about the drinking water and the water for washing hands and things like that in our control. And there's going to be funding from the Department of Health and to pay for the remediation.
Well, they've done well.
And part of part of what was a big fight in the legislature this year was Vermont School Board, Vermont superintendents, and others really fighting to make sure that it was not a huge burden to schools financially.
Right.
Obviously, time and personnel is at an issue. Not all schools have folks, but I think we'll be well positioned to take care of it. But I did want to give you just a quick snapshot of
That's amazing.
that's
sinks
what will be
versus
available
water
for
fountains.
every school.
I think that's an important differentiation.
Yeah.
So part of this legislation, because there was already a standard,
Yep.
it looked like some of them were above what that standard.
Yeah.
So is more frequent testing part of the legislation, or what is the?
I think we're going to all be on a cycle
Yeah.
where every so many years we're going to have to do testing again. Yeah, that's my recollection. I don't know it off the top of my head. But there is this Department of Health site here that's linked. That's all described. And there's videos and there's all kinds of.
Thank you for
a
giving
lot
us
of
those
information.
links.
I think it would be helpful for you. So that's what I've got. Playgrounds and lead.
Julie, somewhere did I see something about a parking lot? Remember a parking lot discussion?
The lease.
Oh, yes, I reached out under the lease. I have not, David has not gotten back to me. So we have not sat down at the table again. But I've reached out to him and I'm doing it again because the lease ended of August. So we need to come to
My
terms.
thinking on that is, I think his remark was that he would look at his insurance and his taxes and come up with an increase.
Yeah,
And that's fine, but I hope we have some hard data, whatever he comes up with, to show what kind of increases he's seen. But as far as paving, it'd be fairly easy to get somebody to give a cost estimate for paving and then see if we some way can roll that into the lease. Because if they do a good job of paving, it'll last more than 1 year. And if we're going into a 5-year lease or whatever we're talking about, I think that those $1,000 and spread it out. For people who maybe don't realize what we're talking about, I brought up the last time that I think that parking lot over there is, other than being a disaster, I don't think it's very healthy for the people who have to drive in there in their automobiles sometimes. You decide going forward how you're going to pursue it. I just want to bring it up tonight that I think is something we should really pursue with the landlord.
yep. And my intention is to speak to him about that proposal, that the board is interested in seeing what can be done about paving rather than regrading. I'm not sure
Okay, thank you.
what the outcome
Don
will
and
be.
Vista, are you talking about here?
No, central office.
Central office.
Oh, yeah.
Potholes,
So
and
bad.
snow removal, and other good things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long story.
I got you.
That's at the very least, they are going to rip up all those stumps, and he's going to regrade, as he's been doing at his property across
Somebody
the road.
a little while ago.
Yeah.
Well, imagine when it's snowy.
Yeah.
But when they were higher,
People
they actually took the
this
sides
high
off
now.
many cars, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just going to get it.
Okay, principal and administration announcements.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any announcements? Anything you want to share?
Hires. We saw the list, I guess. So we're filled, we're hired for the year.
That's great.
Wonderful.
That must feel
I
good.
have full custodial staff now, which is great. Center school running well.
Wonderful. Thanks,
She's
Pat.
going now. She said like the time.
Do a nice job.
Okay, on to future agenda items.
That was quick.
Well, they weren't prepped.
Okay,
to-
that
to
wasn't
do
your,
anything.
that wasn't your month.
No.
This was just an on the spot, put them on the hot seat kind of response.
Hosting tonight.
Okay. You know, though, seeing this, is there any way to have the principal's reports be able to come earlier instead of them having to wait till the very end?
It'll be part of the presentation, right? At the
Possibly.
But we also
We
have it
could-
here.
If you want, we can redesign where we put principal announcements, we can put them closer to the
I don't think
top.
they're gonna wanna miss anything.
Yeah, right, they want to stay to the
We don't
very
want them
end.
scooting out the back, holy
If I was
smokes.
the principal, would I want to leave this group on its own? I would stay to adjourn.
Well, we put them at the end for safety, but if you insist.
Thought. I mean, I can see where, if it's your school, but if it's not your school and you're the second principal, you might not want to wait till the very end.
True.
What's the board's pleasure? When we build the next agenda, we can move them up to in front of new business after presentations if you want.
I'm asking
Doesn't
principals,
matter.
what do they prefer?
I think we'd like our audience fresh, sure.
Oh, that's very
like that.
politically nicely said.
Yeah.
It's about the audience, it's
That
not
was
about
really
them.
good.
Okay.
I agree.
That doesn't mean they have to go home. They're still welcome.
No, absolutely.
Right, but then they have an option.
Yeah, you just try to stop them.
We lock the doors upstairs.
No, but that is a good point to have people.
Okay,
fresh.
and then on to future meeting dates. We don't have a location set for our August 6th meeting.
No, I talked with Jay and Dan last week, and then I sort of cornered Dan when he was doing some paperwork, and was looking at this agenda and said, we're not going to be good for the general public on August 6th, are we? And the thought was, oh, let's find another library besides MVU. The front will not be done until right before school starts. It might be a little uninviting, a little difficult for folks to find their way. So we can talk with Swanton about, I think either it would be Highgate or Swanton, because Joyce is really focused on the August 20th. So to be fair to her, if central office were better, I'm less worried about the parking lot. I'd
Yeah.
like to knock a wall out.
Yeah, I
and
wish
have-
there was a.
but there really isn't space for 9 people and
Yeah,
a few
public.
administrators.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It would be difficult.
Can Franklin be ready? I'd like to see that playground and opening a school.
But that's on the next.
That's the next one on the 20th, and they've asked us to keep to that.
What about the Swanton Library?
We could do the Swanton Library. And I haven't talked to Dina yet. So, with that caveat,
The
that,
Swanton
I would
Library.
I would not invite you to a school without asking the principal
Do you
if that
mean-
was going to work
Do
for
you mean
them.
the Swanton Library as in the building the Swanton Library or the elementary Swanton Library?
The elementary school.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I meant the Swanton
Oh,
Library.
upstairs?
On the corner.
Upstairs.
Oh, that's nice.
I would prefer to stay in the schools.
I would as well.
Personally.
If
because
we
that's-
can.
That's what we've traditionally done. And our public knows that's where we're gonna be.
Yeah.
At least if they know what town to go to, they know where to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it'd be right before school if there's all kinds of things going on that they can't.
Depends on what work is happening in the school. So I want to be
Yeah.
respectful
So
of
we have
Jason
2
and those
libraries at
folks.
Swanton, so we could go to one.
That's true. That's true.
Well, let's
All right,
leave
so
it
I'll
to
work
you.
with Dina and Justina on that, and if for some reason it can't be Swanton, we'll ask Pat's permission to come back.
Anytime.
As long as I give you notice more than like 2 hours, like tonight.
Wow, that was really good.
So, when are we gonna have it, are we gonna have it in stone where we're going in each month?
There's a,
This,
do.
this schedule is
It's
really
already there.
nice, but it seems like it's changing.
But my only concern is the public, because if we're, and I agree, we should be going to all the schools, but we need to have it well planned out so the public knows where we're gonna be. So if they have questions or whatever, they
Where to
can,
find us.
where they can find us.
It's linked through this.
So we have
So
this
so
here.
the public is able to see this?
Not yet. When we finalize it, we'll get that posted so that it's clear. And then obviously each meeting as it's warned on Facebook, on the school websites, will have a location. But I think it will be nice to have,
Would
and
it
we
be
won't
posted
necessarily.
in the schools, like, you know, it'd be nice Franklin people or whatever school, when the parents are in the school or whatever, they go, oh, they're gonna be here, maybe
Right. So all the school websites will be able to have it.
But I
We'll
know
have it.
physical, if there's like boards in the school where we put up notices or stuff. you know,
Most
just so
schools have
parents-
something.
Is it out here?
Yeah, there's one outside
Yeah.
our storefront.
And it should be on, it'll always be on the agenda, but I think if, once we get a chart for,
Yeah.
say, maybe the next 3 or 4 months, we should put it town clerk's offices and other places where mornings are posted.
Well, the other thing we can do is by the next meeting, Julie and I can lock down that schedule. We can also create a rotation for the MVU meeting so that the administrators know when they're presenting at MVU. We'll mirror it to the rotation of where we're actually visiting schools.
Yeah, we just threw it together, so we obviously don't want to have something that says to be determined all over it, but, you know, we want
Well,
to,
that's the thing I called Pure at because I didn't know about tonight. and that
Right.
stuff, so.
oh heck,
But
I
caught
barely
myself
remembered this morning
so-
about where we were. So obviously Pete's right, the general public, you know, you want to know, I think it will be after, starting in September, first meeting of the month will always be at MVU, unless
Good.
there's some reason not to be. So that's
That's a good deal. Yeah.
that's a consistent one.
You know what I'm wondering, since we have just a few minutes before we go, I would like, since you've sat through the whole meeting, can we just hear, I forgot your name already.
Wendy Cunningham.
Wendy, sorry. Can we hear it from Wendy a little bit? Since she's
Yeah.
here, so
Sure.
Hello. I didn't prepare anything, but I did have a few thoughts come up in listening to some of your topics this evening. Your question around science. One of the things that really excited me when I came on board to MVSD with the early childhood program is that the curriculum that has been in place now for the last 2 years, I believe, Connect for Learning, was chosen very specifically because it focuses on science and math learning. Preschool programs have tended to be really heavily literacy focused. So when you asked that question tonight, I thought this is great because early childhood is right there. We're all on board with working on science and math from the beginning through in-depth investigations that are developmentally appropriate and really exciting for children. In thinking about announcements, one thing that I was able to do last week was MVSD Early Childhood Programs is now a sponsor site for the Bright Futures Information System, which is the state's clearinghouse of holding all of the professional development for early childhood educators, support staff, and partner site staff. So somebody working in our schools, if we are offering professional development, we can now provide them with a certificate of that gets loaded into their account, and now that can help with their annual certification for whichever level they are at in the early childhood career ladder. So that's exciting to come on board. I'm really excited to be here. I consider myself local. I'm across the lake in the islands. My family and I, we've lived there since the early 2000s. And I'm just really excited to be on board. And I just see so many high quality practices already in place here. Sitting through your meeting, how organized you all are after coming together through what you've been through. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to watch. It's been a pleasure. So I really appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself.
Well, thank you.
I worked with the Milton Town School District, and before that I was in the islands. I started as a teacher in the islands, and then went into early childhood administration for the Milton Town School District.
It's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I look forward to bringing updates regularly each month to board meetings and letting you know what's going on with early childhood.
Okay.
Thank
Very
you.
good. So, not seeing any need for a potential executive session, we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I just say something too on record? And that we thanked Laura and everybody, but I think we need to thank you too on the record, Julie. for steering the ship through all this. You know, it's been pretty amazing.
Yes.
And doing it so graciously.
Yeah.
Thank you for
I would
that.
100% agree with that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here.
It's a pleasure to be
Right person at
here.
the right time.
Yes, we did.
Always a
Before
pleasure.
we adjourn, have we picked a date and a place yet for next meeting? Or how are we doing?
She's going to work out with Dina if we can meet in Swanton. The date is August 6th at 6:30. We're just working on the where right now. Which is at the top of all of our agendas that we've warned to the public too. So once again, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make it.
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you,
6-0.
ladies.
Do we have to hire?
Thank you.